Good morning. My name is Ryan McBee, and I am a member of the Board of Directors here at TVUC, and on behalf of the Program Council and the Board, I would like to welcome you. You are welcome here, whoever you are, wherever you come from, and wherever you are in your journey. If you'd like more information on TVUC, please fill out the visitor information card found in the seat back or pew in front of you, and you can drop that in the collection plate. Currently, we are at, per the CDC, Knox County's current risk level is now medium for COVID-19. At this time, masks are required in all indoor spaces. All indoor spaces for those above age 2. And there will be no congregational singing during services and no food or drink served in the building. During Sunday services, the Lizzie Crozer French Room will be available as a designated viewing space for those who would prefer to be in a smaller group. And Room A is available for families with children who prefer an area where children may play during the service. If you or your family are interested in our youth religious education program, please visit the education table in the lobby, and Catherine can answer any questions that you have. And all members, friends, and visitors, please visit the card table to sign thank you cards for the special sermon speakers and the worship associates this summer, and give a warm hello to our speakers before you leave. Thank you from the worship committee. Now please silence your electronic devices as we enter into worship.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Elandria Williams, and I serve as the chair of the worship committee. The worship committee is happy to have our speaker today being Hafidha Acuay. Hafidha is the oldest child of Aquila and Omar Collins. She was born in Queens, New York, and raised in the Islamic faith. At the age of 25, Hafidha left Islam and found her way to Unitarian Universalism, a journey she wrote about for UU World magazine in 2006. At First Unitarian of Portland, Oregon, Hafidha was nudged into leadership development opportunities by Joseph Santos Lyons, a skilled organizer who would go on to become a UU community minister. For 10 years, Hafidha was an active member of First UU. She led communications and activities for their group of 18 to 35-year-olds, organized conversations and study sessions on the Great Turn-In and New Economies with the Real Wealth of Portland group, and served on the First UU nominating committee. Regionally, she organized young adult cons for the PMWD and served as chaplain and advisor at youth cons. Hafidha first met Elandria Williams in 2002 at a Continental UU Young Adult Network conference outside of Toronto. Though they lived 2,000 miles apart, the two became close friends and seized any opportunity to work and be together. They trained with Groundwork, a UU anti-racist trainer organizer collective, served on the drum steering committee, and eventually were both staff at PeoplesHub, an online training organization where Elandria led as executive director. Hafidha is currently managing director at PeoplesHub. She also coordinates programming for another nonprofit, Families of Color Seattle. She is the proud mom of a trans teenager. Hafidha is deeply grateful for the UU communities she's been a part of. She is currently unchurched and regularly practices Buddhist meditation. Let's give Hafidha Acuay a big round of applause. Thank you. This reading is the opening words are by Kimberly Ann Tomzak Carson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief and a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home and welcome to worship.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant. On this song, Love Will Guide Us, it's all familiar to us, but we found a new verse that we're slipping in there for you.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the dark night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. You are like no other being. What you can give, no other can give. To the future of our precious children, the future of the world where we live. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the dark night.
know we cannot live within. I use the word love here not merely in the personal sense, but as a state of being or a state of grace, not in the infantile American sense of being made happy, but in the tough and universal sense of quest and daring and truth. James Baldwin.
This is a song that Elandria had us sing for her service when she did the service, I guess, about three or four summers ago. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Would you open your hymn books to responsive reading number 610, The Journey of Love. Where in our hearts is that burning of desire? Whence comes that drive in us? Whence comes that storm? But sometimes with a sigh, you can cross that vast desert. You may find someone a treasure on your way. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm doing Joys and Concerns I'm John Montgomery, for those who don't know me, and I'm doing Joys and Concerns this morning. How about that? I'll eat the microphone, as they say in the biz. First, a concern for Mark Mahundro's mom, Carolyn, who fell Friday evening and fractured her hip. If nothing's changed, I believe this surgery is scheduled for today in the hospital in Baton Rouge where she was admitted. So we'll be thinking about Mark and his family. Our former ministerial intern, John Coffey, continues to get better and better after his most recent bout with COVID. And also today we're thinking about Elnora and her family after the passing of her brother James Charles Jr. I think the funeral was last weekend or the weekend before. This past week. So keep Elnora and Irvin and her family, their family, in your thoughts. And Ryan McBee's grandmother, Hilda McBee, passed away recently. And Ryan was telling me that she was from Germany originally and had a personal style that could best be described as direct. And also we're going to keep in our thoughts Bill Dabbs, who is caring for a family member, his sister, who experienced a stroke recently. And also David Asbury, as he continues to care for family members after with their dealing with COVID. And yes, we do have some joys after all those concerns. First, we have a visitor with us today, Reverend Barnaby Feeder. He is the minister at Champlain Valley in Middlebury, Vermont, where Alan Moore and Carol Harden, longtime members of TVUC, now attend. The Reverend is doing some sabbatical research on focusing primarily on the societal issue of polarization and how we might best cope with, I don't want to say the bane of our societal existence. That may be overstating it, but it is a serious issue. And I mentioned to the minister, to the Reverend, if he comes up with anything, please share it, because we could all use some help in that department. Another joy, this just came to me, is for the music that we're so blessed to have here with Dr. Howells and Paul and Carolyn. Thank you so very, very much. And today's meditation comes in the form of a verbal thank you note to this beloved community. I am so blessed and so privileged and so fortunate to be a member of a community that not only talks the talk, but walks the walk as well. Love, caring, support, personified in this group. And I feel myself so very, very fortunate to be here. So thank you all.
Good morning. My name is Claudia Presley, and I'm the Director of Finance and Administration here at TVUC. Right now, in this part of the service, we're doing our Share the Plate offering. Those of you that were here last week got to hear about this organization. This is their second week here. They are the Feral Feline Friends of East Tennessee, And I hear that they have actually brought show and tell for you guys, which was a huge hit last week. But just to tell you what Share the Plate is, what we do is once a month there is an organization that is selected that receives half of any contributions that come in that are not marked as a pledge. So you can give through offering baskets today, you can give through the giving kiosk out in the lobby, you can text give, you can also give online. If you're here today, all of those options are listed in the order of service. If you are watching us online, best way to give is text give 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount you'd like to give, or you can just go to our website, tvuuc.org, and there's a tab over on the very far right that says Give. So thanks very much for being here. Here are the folks now from the Feral Feline Friends of East Tennessee.
So good morning. Good morning. I see many familiar faces from last week, so I'll shorten the upfront piece because there's someone who has a story to tell of his own. So my name is Ray Pascoe, and I volunteer with Feral Feline Friends of East Tennessee, and I'm joined by my daughter Lindsay and one very special furry friend. So our organization is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization. Our mission is to end the overpopulation of cats in the East Tennessee area. We do this by providing a humane alternative to euthanasia through trap, neuter, and release. We have ongoing cat care colonies that we take care of, and then we foster cats in our home. Most of our fosters have more cats in their home than you have fingers, and some of them have more cats than you have fingers and toes. Right now, in our house, we only have 8 fosters, so we're blessed. He is one of them. So since 2004, our organization has trapped, neutered, microchipped, and vaccinated over 13,000 cats. And we trap homeless cats that most people think are feral, but sometimes they're tame and they're friendly, or they're pregnant and they have babies and kittens. So we get all those cats adopted. So in the last 2 years, we've got over 2,100 cats adopted, and after this week, it'll be 2,200. Because we're going to get 100 cats adopted this week. So these cats that are friendly or adoptable, they go into homes, they go into foster care homes, and you can't imagine how different a cat is after it's been loved on for 8 or 9 weeks in someone's home. They're just tremendously loving and giving, as this young man is. So if you want to learn about us, I encourage you to visit our website, feralfelinefriends.org. Look us up on Facebook, or come over to the PetSmart on Morrell Road. This is the last day of the National Adoption Week. I told you last week we were hoping to get 85 cats adopted. We've already got 86 as of yesterday, so after today we'll be over 100, so yay for that, yes. We're looking for help. We're looking for people who want to get involved, who have that servant heart, that want to take care of people, or kids that need taking care of. We're in desperate need of foster families or volunteers, and we'll have materials at the end, so I'm happy to share that with you if you're interested. But today, the star of the show is this young man, and this is Ozzy. Ozzy's a special kitten. He's a 9-month-old Siamese mix. He was very sick. You wouldn't know that to look at him today. He had FIP, which is feline infectious peritonitis. FIP is usually fatal. So had Ozzy not got the treatment, Ozzy would not be here today. Ozzy's mom, Isabella, she died in our family room, and Ozzy had a sister named Izzy, and Izzy did not contract FIP, so Izzy's been adopted 3 months ago. Let me tell you about the protocol for this because it's interesting, right? So there's a drug for it. It's new. It's only going by its clinical name, which is GS441524. It's a nucleoside analog antiviral drug. If that isn't a mouthful, I don't know what is, right? It's very expensive. Each vial, and this is a vial, it's empty because it's precious. This vial costs $100, and it's 2 to 3 doses. The protocol is 84 days of injection. 84 days of injection with a needle this size. So for 84 days, I held Ozzy down and comforted him while Susan injected him. This drug is a high pH, so it burns when it goes in, and it stings, and the poor baby just cried. So he would cry, I would cry, Susan would cry, everyone would cry after 84 days of that. So, but after that, it took about a minute and a half for him to calm down, and when he got done, he would reach up and he would kiss me. And if you've never been kissed by a cat before, they take their cheek and their nose and they rub it on your cheek. Ozzy would kiss me every time after 84 injections, almost to say, thank you, or I'm ready for that wet cat food treat now, so, which he also got. So that's not the end of it. It's 84 days of treatment. What happens next is 84 days of observation, right? You have to get through the treatment, and then you have to get through observation. Yesterday was day 84. And Ozzy's been asymptomatic since, and next week he goes for his final blood test where we think he'll be cured. So think about this. This is something that used to kill cats, which is now curable. I tell you all this to say that that treatment costs, when we're done, $5,000. So that's a $5,000 cat. He's available for adoption, and he's a kitten, and our adoption fee is $100. I'm not an accountant, but I can tell you that we're going to lose $4,900 on that cat. And we'll do it again. And we'll do it every time we find a cat that has FIP. So that's what we're all about. And that's why we're here, and that's why I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. We exist out of the generosity of organizations and people. I write grants, I get grant money, we get donations, people put us in their will or in their trusts, and they bequeath us money. And that's the only reason we survive. So when we're asked to be here or offered to be here, oh my gosh, it was a blessing. So I thank you all for everything. We're deeply grateful and humbled by your interest and the desire to help our cause. And thank you, and bless you all.
Well, the sales pitch last week convinced John and Keith to adopt a pair, which was part of their healing process from COVID. So that was a great pitch. And we were going to, we thought about doing the Meow duet, the famous Meow duet for the offertory, but we decided we'd stick with Love because we could sing that better.
Well, I'm not on it. Just a second. Look down, and there it was.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and I see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love heals and sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love.
Hello, good afternoon, or good morning still. Is it? Yes, good morning still. All right. Well, thank you everyone. My name is Hafidha Acuay. I use she, her pronouns. And as Mrs. Williams mentioned earlier, I live in Seattle, Washington. And I just want to thank everyone, thank Mrs. Williams, the worship committee, and others who were a part of inviting me here. I think there are several people who knew Elandria Williams who will be speaking this month. Susan Williams next week, and Joe Talbert at the end of the month. This week on Wednesday was Elandria's birthday. Elandria would have been 43 years old. I'm sure many, if not all of you, knew Elandria. But this is my first time being at TVUC, and it's a beautiful church, so thank you for having me. So why I'm here, Mrs. Williams invited me to talk about PeoplesHub or kind of anything. So I am going to talk about leadership in particular. As Mrs. Williams mentioned earlier, Elandria was the executive director at PeoplesHub, and I worked there with Elandria. And so leadership and Elandria's presence are things that are on my mind, have been on my mind every day, in addition to just Elandria as a person, as a dear friend, as my kids' godparent. Just Elandria is on my mind almost all the time. I should have requested that song, You Were Always on My Mind, because actually you really like that song too. In any event, so yeah, I'm going to talk about leading with love and leadership's lessons from Elandria on leadership with love, and how love, when we allow ourselves to be led by it and choose to lead by it, is maybe all that we need to get us through the hard night, as they sang earlier. So hold that thought, and I'm going to come back to it. And first, though, I want to skip to a different topic, which is the topic of fatigue, because this is a word that has been coming up everywhere. Hearing about all kinds of fatigue. Everybody's tired. I know you're all being very quiet and polite, but I'm curious if you can make a little noise or raise your hand and let me know if there's anybody else in here who is tired. And there's I'm hearing about like COVID fatigue, there's mask fatigue, there's Zoom fatigue. If there's any other fatigues you can think about, let me know. We can just shout them out. What's that? Too much to do, yes. What other kinds of fatigue? Dating fatigue? Okay, yes, I actually went through that recently. What's that? Politics fatigue, yes. Are there any others? What's that? Oh, yes, working in a grocery store, frontline worker fatigue. I've heard of healthcare fatigue. Any other ones? Bad news, I know. It does seem like there's disaster news fatigue. There's scrolling fatigue, and I've also heard, of course, of compassion fatigue. So a lot of us are tired. That just seems to be the general, I've noticed this general mood of being tired. And I found online on the Oregon Health Authority website, well, actually it's on the Oregon State Government website, but there's a doctor named Dr. Margaret Carey, and she's the Senior Health Advisor for the Oregon Health Authority. She did an interview earlier this year about fatigue, COVID in particular, but I think this definition can apply to other types of fatigue as well. So I'll just share her definition. COVID fatigue, she says, fundamentally is the natural response to prolonged, all-encompassing stress that demands our emotional, cognitive, physical, and spiritual energy. The stress comes from what we are experiencing, as well as from the emotional and cognitive energy required to continually respond to uncertainty and changing circumstances. The pandemic has resulted in losses. Grieving is a whole body, mind, spirit process that exhausts us, even though it also eventually helps us heal. So that line around prolonged, all-encompassing stress that demands our emotional, cognitive, physical, and spiritual energy is just something I need a minute to feel in my body and just consider the weight of it and maybe to take a few breaths. I think it's really important to acknowledge that this is what we're all sitting with and being with and working through and collaborating together with. We're doing, you're still running a congregation, you're still living your life, you're still paying your bills, you're still going to work with all of that. And I really appreciate everybody here for coming. Not just coming here, but actually making it this far into 2022. And for showing up today, because you really didn't have to be here. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you didn't have to be watching. But coming to worship is about giving something to yourself and to your people. And it's ideally sustenance for the days ahead. So I hope being here today feeds you and gives you strength for the coming week. And also, I guess I should ask, is being here today feeding you and giving you strength for the coming week? I want that for you, but I want everybody also to ask themselves, is that actually happening? And if the answer is, not so sure, or no, then I want to ask you to think about what's missing. What would make being here today something that fed you and gave you strength? Just take a moment to think about that, and I'm going to go ahead and share a quote from Margaret J. Wheatley, who some of you might be familiar with. She's a person I enjoy reading and have learned a lot from. She's written a lot about leadership, and in more recent years, she's written about preparing for really hard times. But this particular quote has to do with self-awareness. And I'm just finding my little note here. Yes, all right. So this has to do with self-awareness. This is from her book, Leadership and the New Science, which is, it's probably 20 years old at this point, if not older. But it's a really good book, and it was quite impactful at the time that it came out, really connecting, talking about leadership, not from a corporate business standpoint, but looking at natural systems and what we had to learn from natural systems. So now there's a lot of talk, at least in Seattle, about mycelium and all the things we have to learn from the whales and other natural organisms, bioorganisms, and how human beings, we are also bioorganisms. We are part of this earth. We are part of nature. So why would not some of these laws that apply to all the other creatures on the planet not apply to us and how we interact? So this book was sort of groundbreaking at its time. But this particular quote is about the founder of Aikido, who was a Japanese man named Morihei Ueshiba. So she writes about him. Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of the martial art of Aikido, was a small man who could turn back the onslaughts of opponents, many times his weight and size, with movements that were imperceptible. He appeared to be perfectly centered, anchored to the ground in an extraordinary way, but this was not the case. His ability came not from superior balance, but from superb levels of self-awareness. As he described it, he was quicker to notice when he was off balance and faster at returning to center. He perfectly describes how to move in harmony with life rather than to resist it. First, we must know what center feels like. We must know who we are, our patterns of behavior, our values, our intentions. The ground of our identity and experience must feel familiar to us. We must know what it feels like to be standing in it. But we don't expect that we will be perfectly balanced in that center all the time. We know that we will drift into the wrong activities or be thrown off balance by life's chaos. But we also recognize when we've moved off too far, and we'll be able to recall ourselves more quickly to who we want to be. Ueshiba Sensei also highlights a quality of attention. We must keep participating in the moment. The changing nature of life insists that we stop hiding behind our plans or measures and give more attention to what is occurring right in front of us right now. We need to become curious about what's going on, what just happened. The present moment overflows with information about ourselves and our environment, but most of those learnings fly by unobserved because we're preoccupied with our images of how we want the world to be. So I'm sharing that quote, which is a pretty long quote, several paragraphs, because it's about a big buzzword these days, which is mindfulness. But self-awareness is also really important. Mindfulness can be meditating or just sort of being calm and relaxed and breathing. But self-awareness is a thing that can kind of fill in that space and allows us to check in with ourselves. How are we doing? And also, am I in alignment with what I say I'm supposed to be doing? Like, how am I actually showing up? How am I actually being in this world? So for example, when I asked, is being here today good for you? Is it feeding you? Is it nourishing you? You know, you can come here out of habit or because, you know, you're on the coffee committee, but you want to be here because there's actually something that you're getting out of it and also something that you're bringing to it. And having moments of awareness around that and thinking and asking yourself that question, like, is this doing what I think it's supposed to be doing? Am I getting out of it what I need to get out of it? Is an opportunity for us to make it right. If it's not working, then let's make it right. What do I need to actually show up? And that's taking some responsibility for your own getting your needs met, but also for how you're showing up. And that was a lesson that I learned from Elandria. Elandria would often check in with people and check in with me and be like, well, what do you need right now? You know, everybody's sort of like, oh, I'm doing great. Well, actually, what's really going on? What do you really need? And I think about that. That's one of the things I miss about E a lot. And it's one of my lessons of leadership that I'm going to share in just a minute. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was my own fatigue very briefly. I'll just say, I'm not going to go into all the drama and the details, but I had a pretty rough 2 years in spite of COVID going pretty well for me. I mean, it was tough, you know, for me in the sense that, you know, my best friend died and my boyfriend dumped me without any notice. I mean, the same week that my best friend died. So it was a really rough year. But at the same time, I was working really well. I was busy. I had a kid who's a teenager, so I didn't have to deal with childcare. So on the whole, I felt like I'm doing great. My health is great. Everything's great. Then last year, I went to go get my very first mammogram, and it was not a good result. So that was very surprising. I had another unpleasant surprise. I had surgeries at the end of last year. Still, I was hanging in there. I was doing all right. I didn't take any time off work. I was good. And then a few months ago, I had to have my radiation treatments. And they told me, you might have a little fatigue. And I said, well, I'm fine. I'm young and healthy and I exercise every day. It'll be great. They said, if you want to take time off from work, I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I don't need to do that. I got this. And needless to say, I did not have that. I almost, for the first time in a very, very long time, almost fell apart. And I just felt myself, so the fatigue just hit me. I don't know if any of you have ever had radiation therapy. It was not a joke. It was, I thought, a few minutes a day, what can that do? A lot, and it was cumulative, and it just got worse and worse. It was actually worse when all the treatments were over. And I could feel myself, I was doing that check-in, I could feel myself just slowly losing, felt like losing a grip on everything. I just felt like I couldn't sleep right, I just didn't feel right. I was so wiped out, I was so exhausted, I was so overwhelmed. All the fatigue of the last 2 years seemed to just land on me in 1 month or 6 weeks. And I thought to myself, I think I'm having a breakdown, but you can't have, what do they say, you can't have a breakthrough without breaking through something, so I guess this is what's happening. And I just waited, I thought, well, let's just see what happens. I thought it's my turn to go through this. I've watched other people go through it and felt sorry for them and sent them cards, and now this is my turn to have a really, really hard time. And I also really wanted Elandria there because Elandria had always been with me when I'd had these really, really hard times. So in that breaking down, I started thinking a lot about what I missed most about Elandria. And it wasn't just at work where we missed her or missed them, but also, just as a friend. And it was that what I realized I missed was the way that Elandria loved and the way that Elandria modeled love and leadership. Because even as a friend, you can be a leader. You're the person who, maybe you're the person who has all the ideas, or you're the person who shifts the energy in the room when you come in. Anybody, you can be a leader at any moment in your life. You can be a leader in your household, you can be a leader at your church, you can be the leader with your little group of movie night friends. But Elandria was always leading, and was always leading in a very loving and lovable way. So one of the things I think it's important for people to know about Elandria is that Elandria actually did a lot of work to be lovable. I don't know how many of you knew Elandria very, very well. Elandria was easy to love and difficult to be with sometimes. So Elandria was an extremely picky eater and then had all these allergies on top of it, and was just, we spent a lot of time together, traveled together, we slept in the same hotel bed together. I loved Elandria, and Elandria was like, I'm hard, I'm difficult, aren't I? And I said, yes, yes. And yet Elandria was always lovable too, but Elandria had to work hard to be lovable. The way that I see it is Elandria sort of used love as like this machete that kind of cut through all the weeds that would kind of keep people apart, keep us apart from each other. And she, they cut this path with the machete of love, and they did it to reach other people, and so that other people could reach them. And I think about that a lot because of the time when I was really struggling. My tendency is to withdraw. There's definitely, I'm just letting those weeds of obstacles just grow up in between me and others, and I'm just, receding into the background. And I kept thinking about how E would just cut those weeds down and just kind of crash in like the Kool-Aid Man and be like, what's going on? And that invitation to touch and be touched was extremely powerful, and it's not as common as I think it needs to be. And I'm still thinking about how do I develop that in myself so that I'm a person with this, using love as a machete to just clear the way between me and others. But that is something that is definitely one of the lessons, and also something that I think made E so lovable. In addition to being just sort of naturally lovable, E did actually work on the other part that was hard, the difficult part, which was her ego. Everybody has an ego. It manifests itself in different ways, but part of leading with love is actually taking the time and paying attention to the difficult parts of yourself, the parts of yourself that say, I'm brilliant, and therefore I don't need to listen to anybody. I'm right. Or the parts of yourself that say, I've been so victimized that anything that ever happens to me, it's definitely somebody else's fault. I have I'm not culpable in any way, and I don't even need to think about it. Or the parts of ourselves that when something difficult comes up, we're just extremely passive because what if we say the wrong thing? Or what if we break something by saying the wrong thing? Or what if somebody doesn't like us anymore? So we all have, I know I have some things about myself that if I worked on them, I could actually be a little bit easier to love. And also I would maybe love myself a little bit more. But yeah, being easy to love, I will say, is not the same as being easy. And this takes work, though. Elandria actually tended to her ego. She was so brilliant. She was really, really sharp. She could have this memory that could just hold all kinds of information. But she also spent probably as much time on her own spiritual practice, years of yoga practice, years of reading spiritual books and religious texts, years with teachers and mentors, years of working with organizers and listening and learning from other people. One of the last conversations we had the week that E passed, E was saying to me, Fee, there's a lot of people who want to teach. They want to get their credentials, they just want to speed through this, 500-hour thing so they can get their credentials, so they can be a teacher, so they can create their following and have a brand. But all the best teachers all have teachers. They're learning at the same time. And a lot of people forget that it's not about just getting the title of being a teacher, but actually about being a good learner. And E was really, really in a lot of study at any given time, was in multiple courses of study to work specifically on their soul and their spirit. Because it wasn't enough to just be out in the world doing all these things for other people or for communities. They also knew that in order to be doing that for the right reasons and to be doing that in the right ways that were good and just and fair and kind and compassionate and not just replicating problems, that they had to do that work. And I think that's one of the most valuable lessons of leadership that I learned from Elandria. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. I meant to set a timer. All right. So those are a couple things. One other thing I wanted to talk about was I wanted to bring up a couple more lessons because I was inspired by that song, We Shall Be Known, that was sung earlier. Thank you very much. It's very beautiful. I've never heard that arrangement. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of the lines. I think probably most people know that song. It's by Ma Muse. It's a simple song. It's kind of a song I think that's considered to be part of the Great Turning. I don't know if how many of you are familiar with that, but there's like a website called Songs for the Great Turning. I've been very interested and involved in the Great Turning for, 17 years. Back when I used to do stuff with, in Portland, with the Real Wealth of Portland, we studied David Corton and Rianne Eisler, and we're really into those sort of solidarity economies, alternative economies. But these songs, and there's songs on that website, and there are songs that are trying to help prepare us for a different time, this new age. Everything's falling apart, it seems like. We're all super, super exhausted. We're losing really amazing, talented, loving people like Elandria to death, to illness. People have been being sidelined in so many different ways. People are getting burned out. People need to rest. And we don't really know what we're stepping into in terms of how the world is changing. So these songs are meant to kind of inspire us and encourage us. So this is one of them. And I'll just read the first line and then name a couple things that stand out to me from it. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. So what I like about this line is that it points out when it says we shall be known by the company we keep, that leadership is communal, and that people vest power in us, and also there's power that we can claim. And then the fire that we're sort of circling around and tending, this to me is fires of love, because to me love is fuel. One of the things I was feeling that was so hard for me earlier this year when I was feeling like I was breaking down is that I was still single. And this is kind of embarrassing to say. Somebody mentioned dating earlier, but I hadn't had a boyfriend in like a year and a half, and I was lonely. I have a kid, and I have a wonderful housemate, and I have friends, and my mom, and my dad. But I really was like, I was really torn. I was like, I should be an independent woman. I don't need no man. My grandmother used to say, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. But it was not true for me. Like, I actually really did. So now I do have a boyfriend, and he's wonderful, and I think he's watching this. So, hi, Corby. But, love, I realize being loved is fuel. Seeking and finding and sharing love does keep us going. It's not weak or blameworthy to feel like you're just not really doing as well as you could be by yourself. You'd actually really rather be doing it with somebody else who's there for you. So that's really important to me. Of course, I'm not saying that you should only have romantic love. There's so many different kinds of love. Friends, loved ones, adopted family, all of these kinds of loves are important. But I personally really did want a boyfriend. So I had to admit that to myself. And whatever you need in terms of love, acknowledge that it is fuel. It is fuel that helps us to step into our leadership. If you feel like people have your back, somebody's got your back, you might be a lot more brave, a lot more courageous than if you were just feeling like you were out there on your own. So I think don't be ashamed of love and finding love. All right, let's see what the next line is. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. So for me, this line, the one about the people who sow and reap, sowing and reaping from from a biblical standpoint, is about sort of that time between when you sort of plant your seeds and when you actually get to benefit from the harvest. You can't just plant your seeds today and get the harvest tomorrow. There's always this wait. But the wonderful thing is, in the Bible at least, it's a promise. It's actually a promise. It's like you will reap what you sow. Now that could be that's value neutral. So if you do a bunch of terrible things, you will reap those. But if you do wonderful things, it will come back for you. So I think this is a line that gives us some faith and something to sort of, it's a promise that if we actually do this work, even if it seems small, and we actually do the work of sowing and tending, it will show up for us. Maybe not for us, but maybe for our future generations. And that's really, really, really important. We can't just expect to just do things for ourselves. We have to be doing things for the future. And if not doing that is why we're in the situation that we're in right now. The other piece is the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. That to me points to some of the work that Elandria was doing that I described earlier around taking care and tending to your own self. If you're not reading spiritual works, if you're not putting any good stuff in, then you're gonna feel like crap. Whether it's food that you're eating or it's things that you're reading or things that you're watching, we actually have to do the work of putting in good stuff and actually taking care of ourselves as if we're very precious, as if we're a crop. And that work isn't always visible. That internal work is always shifting, and other people might not see it, but we have to do it for ourselves. The last two lines. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. So in this line, I'm thinking about when I'm so tired I need to go back. I'm tired, I'm just surviving, I'm not thriving. This is when I need to go back to the source. I need to go back to the things that I know to be true. Usually they're the most simple things, like love is probably where I need to be letting guide me, as in that song, and not getting too caught up in the drama and gossip and people, conflicts and stuff like that. But like, what is it that I really want in this world? And taking that attitude and just going back to that and grounding myself in that is what will allow me to thrive. And then the very last line, well, it's not the very last line, it's the second to last line. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. I love this part about what a time to be alive, because this time actually kind of sucks right now. It really feels awful most of the time. And yet, it's in all of this shifting, of course, that opportunities are arising. So, and this is what, why it's so important to be ready with our seeds and ready with our farming implements to go ahead and tend to what can actually happen when we overturn the soil. Anyways, I could say more about that, but I think I'm running out of time. Anyways, I love that song, and I really would love to do more sort of examining our favorite UU songs line by line. But thank you for indulging me with that. And I want to kind of close, I guess, by saying that in times of fatigue, such as now, and in what feels like the dark nights, when we're feeling most troubled sometimes, I want you to remember the love that Baldwin spoke of. So there's love, that's this happiness, but then there's also this love that is grace and that is much more rigorous. So I want us to think about that love and how it can lead us into our own leadership and into our own ability to lead with love. So it's sort of like a thing we're sort of going to it and then we're working with it. But I want us to think about that and kind of go back to that source. I know Elandria did. Elandria was always talking about love. And when Elandria was working with difficult people who normally you would just write them off, I'd be like, I don't even know what that person's talking about. I don't even care. And Elandria's like, that's because you're a Virgo, you don't care. And so, but I'm a Cancer, so I care. So Elandria would go and talk to these people, and I'd be like, really? They seem like lost causes to me. But Elandria would talk to them, and they would always find some way. That line of like, I love you, but I disagree with you. You're wrong, but I love you. Like, those were words that came out of Elandria's mouth so frequently. And learning how to love people through their differences, through your own differences with them. You're troubled by some of their behaviors, but you're like, I know there's something better. There's something better for all of us, and I'm here for it. I'm here to make it happen. That's why we're here. That's probably why we're UUs. Just remember those things. And then also, I love that responsive reading. I think that's a great one to look back at. And even just recite. I'm a big fan of waking up in the morning and reading, having readings. I know Elandria did that too. There's a whole lot of practices. But that wonderful responsive reading, where in our hearts is that burning of desire? I might have to ask myself that every week or something, maybe on Sundays. It is true that we are made of dust, and the world is also made of dust, but the dust has motes rising. And I just think that is a beautiful image of the dust having motes that rise. Where are the motes that are rising? Whence comes that drive in us? We look to the starry sky, and love storms in our hearts. Well, I hope that love storms in your hearts this weekend. Thank you very much. I want to close out with more words from Morehi Ueshiba, the Japanese founder of Aikido. When he was about 40 years old, Ueshiba had a spiritual experience of enlightenment when he was struck by an understanding about his particular discipline, Budo, which is known as the martial way. I think this is an understanding that we could all apply. He said, "The source of Budo, the martial way, is God's love, the spirit of loving protection for all beings. Budo is not the felling of an opponent by force, nor is it a tool to lead the world to destruction with arms. True Budo is to accept the spirit of the universe, keep the peace of the world, correctly produce, protect, and cultivate all beings in nature."
Now greet your neighbor and please join us in the fellowship hall for refreshments. No, coffee is on the patio, excuse me. Thank you. Have a great day.